Welcome to the People Leaders Podcast, the audio resource for managers and business leaders creating high-performing teams. Join leadership and team development experts Jan and Michelle Turkelson each week as they explore both subjects from every angle. Through practical tips, valuable insights, and compelling interviews with leadership experts around the world, you'll learn how to bring out the best in your staff and how to give your best as a leader.
Okay, so this is a special podcast, one because we've got Melanie on it this morning, but also Jan's not here today, and Jan and I usually do the podcasts together, so she'll be very disappointed that she wasn't here. However, she has given me a couple of questions that she definitely wants me to ask Melanie. So let me introduce Melanie. So Melanie Weller helps voice professionals and professionals that want to empower and optimize their voice to get into the zone, which is where their skill, talent, and ability are visible and magnetic. She's a physical therapist, a board-certified orthopedic clinical specialist, certified athletic trainer, and certified exercise expert for aging adults. So her clinical specialty is decompressing the vagus nerve, which innervates the voice, and much more. This will be so interesting. She connects the physical body with both mythology, which was a mode of transmitting scientific information, identifying the stress-related spiritual underpinnings of physical dysfunction. And so with the mechanics of the earth and the cosmos, for which there's an increasing scientific evidence. This is going to be fascinating, Melanie. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, terrific. So we could start at so many points, but I was really interested when we had a look at your website to look at the importance of voice. And, you know, we quite often talk about the impact that a leader can have based on their presence, their physical presence, how they project their voice, and their tone of voice can really impact the message and the way that they influence people. So maybe we just might start there. Why is the voice so important?
Absolutely. Yeah. Your voice is your expression of your identity, and it reflects the balance of your emotions and your adaptability. So it's really where you, you're really able to connect emotionally with people. It's your creative expression. If I were to talk about it in chakra terms, it's that creation all happens at the pelvis. You know, whether we're making love or babies or business or art, that's the second chakra energy. And then our voice is the creative expression. And your vagus nerve, which we'll talk a lot about today, it spans your second through fifth chakras. And so it really relates it's part of the physical expression of your internal narrative, as well as the internal expression of your physical narrative. You know, it's how you relate both what's happening within you and outside of you, and you connect those energies.
Fantastic. So how does that relate to the vagus nerve then? How does your voice relate to the vagus nerve?
Well, because the vagus nerve innervates your vocal cords, and I'll say most of us are really familiar with when our vagus nerve is not working so well, because that's when we get a lump in our throats and our palms sweat and our heart starts to race and our digestion alters. Like, for example, when you're getting ready to do a public speaking engagement, or, you know, like that nervous speaker.
Okay. So when your
voice
wavers, for example.
When your voice wavers, that's all. Yeah. That's because your vagus nerve has been dialed down.
Right.
So when people are really able to, and this really shows up in leadership, when people are able to express their grace under pressure, it's really an expression of your vagus nerve. And, you know, that's so important in leadership. And, you know, I mean, it's important in the small things we do in life too, but it ends, you know, when you have a bigger platform, it becomes more visible, and you're really able to, as humans, we always like to, you know, like heart cells, like we all synchronize with each other. And so like when somebody it really shows a lot of grace under pressure, they really become the thermostat for the room, that they really set the tone, and they're able to, you know, and then everybody else kind of syncs with them rather than being the thermometer and the, you know, sensing everything else.
Yeah,
that's
and
going
reacting,
on.
like they're setting
Yes.
the tone rather than reacting to it. Could you tell us a little bit? I've heard a little bit about the vagus nerve. Could you? And I'm sure our listeners, have heard about the vagus nerve, but could you explain what it is and why it's so important?
Absolutely. So we could spend hours talking about what the vagus nerve does. So I'll give you the highlights.
Snapshot, yeah.
What it is, snapshot of what it does. Because it does a lot of things. It goes from your brainstem all the way down into the pelvis. It is outside of the spinal cord. It's the 10th cranial nerve. And it innervates your vocal cords, your heart, and your digestive system. And so it's involved in regulation of heartbeat, certainly activating the voice. It is in almost all of your organs, sending information up to your brain as well. As it passes through, it travels down the esophagus to pass through the diaphragm. And when it's in your digestive system, it's involved with digestive enzymes and bile secretion and nutrient absorption, and as well as the muscles of your digestive system that help move the food through. It mediates sweating. It mediates inflammation. It shares the same neurotransmitter that your muscles do. So as a physical therapist, part of why I've always really loved treating the vagus nerve is because I get these really beautiful musculoskeletal transformations with it. That I can decompress the vagus nerve at the base of the skull, and people's ankles and feet will get looser, and their hip flexors will release, and so you get these really fantastic responses in that sense. In the research, and sometimes surgically, so neurosurgeons will, for complicated cases, will sometimes implant a vagus nerve stimulator at the level of the neck, just because that's where it's most superficial. And they'll do that for seizure disorders, some chronic pain, headache conditions. And in the research, when they apply electrical stimulation to the vagus nerve, they found that it reverses the mitochondrial defects that go with heart disease. And mitochondria are little structures deep in your cells that create energy for us. And it reverses insulin resistance in diabetics. So it has these really amazing, far-reaching effects. How well your vagus nerve functions just at a baseline has predictive value for how long people with pancreatic cancer will live. And women with complete spinal cord injuries, meaning they have no function below the level of their injury, can achieve orgasm with vagus nerve stimulation. So there's just, there's lots of awesome things.
It ticks lots of boxes, doesn't it?
It ticks lots of, yeah. Also, and the other thing that's actually really is interesting from, I think, a leadership and mindset perspective is that vagus nerve stimulation paired with another stimulus. So they paired the electrical stimulation with an auditory stimulus, and it actually remaps your brain at the highest levels.
Wow.
So you can change the amount of real estate your brain has about certain functions. So
how does one go about getting their vagus, nerve stimulated? How does that happen? Do you have to go to a masseuse? Is there a special,
No, yeah. Well, I have. If you go to my website and put your email in the box at the bottom of the homepage, it will send you a free vagus nerve course with a whole series of exercises that you can do yourself to decompress it. So. That is one way. There's if you Google it, you'll find lots of information. Like humming is really great, and singing are really great for your vagus nerve because you're using your vocal cords.
Yeah.
Dipping yourself in cold water, taking a cold shower is good for your vagus nerve. So there's other things that you can do to stimulate it. My background is in treating complicated chronic pain patients and people that haven't found success in other places.
Yeah.
And I've treated a lot of anxiety, depression, like things in the psychiatric realm. And you can't always talk or mindset or, cold shower yourself out of a pinched vagus nerve. Like if you've got a lot of mechanical compression on it, it can be difficult to unlock that without a physical movement of some kind, and exercises will certainly do that. But, we're all, mechanically, we're all really big cheaters. Like we all take the path of least resistance movement wise. So you have to really know what to do movement wise to get yourself out of those patterns. And stress, we know through research that stress and trauma always affect the voice and the breath. If we think when we get stressed or traumatized, we gasp or we yell or our voice freezes. And your vocal cords and your diaphragm are horizontal structures in the body. They're they're oriented in what we call the transverse plane. So they're oriented horizontally. And your pelvic floor is oriented horizontally too. And certainly some people in severe trauma will lose bowel or bladder control. So there's a series, what I've deduced over the years of treating these people that just haven't had success in other places, that as you open up these transverse plane structures, these horizontal structures in the body, that you decompress the vagus nerve. And I contextualize a lot of this around this, but you really get, you're also decompressing arteries and veins and lymphatics and everything else that goes vertically through those. And you get better physical flow within the body. You get better flow in your life. One of the things that's just so notable in working with people that haven't had success in other places or that have complicated cases is that what's happening inside their body is often very metaphorical for what's happening outside their body.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. We're a mirror.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, so over the years, I've just really systematized this to say this is kind of how we're made. And I think there's what I've discovered is that there's a real kind of cosmology to it. And so, like you mentioned in the introduction, we know through research that when solar and space weather disrupts the electromagnetic field of the Earth, it's measurable in our vagus nerves. Wow. And the extent to which it's disruptive depends on the strength of our interpersonal connections. When you have better interpersonal connections, then you don't get quite so rattled with, small stuff. But we really just have this beautiful internal cosmology. And like from a compression standpoint, like our right side of our diaphragm has more muscle mass than the left. So theoretically, the right side will always win. And so a lot of people are really locked down, have a kind of hyperactive or hypertonic on the right side of their diaphragm. And so they're stuck a little bit right rotated or compressed on the right side. But the Earth below us and the solar system above us all spin the opposite direction. It all spins to the left. So I think when when I think about alignment, I think, there's this much bigger scale that we aren't really aware of that's happening.
Yeah, I know we're really focusing on the here and the now and what's impacting us. That's wonderful. And yeah, there is something about, looking up and out, because as above, so below, there are so many linkages that we can draw from in order to, be the best that we can be. It's all out there. All we need to do is look in a way. Because if I'm listening to this, I actually want to jump into, okay, so how could I, is there something, because we're quite often talk to our leadership group about, creating good rhythms and routines in your life for health and well-being. Is there something that people could incorporate into a daily rhythm to help with vagus nerve stimulation, for example?
Absolutely. I think probably the biggest thing to do, I said there's, I'm just running through, I'm thinking, that exercise is my favorite. No, that one's my favorite. Yeah. There's so many. Yeah. Keeping your diaphragm in the right position and keeping your diaphragm balanced is just incredibly powerful. Like, especially, it not only keeps you in a good, with good flexibility and good respiratory mechanics and everything, but it really, now I totally lost what I was where I was going there. So how do you the diaphragm, right? So the diaphragm. Oh, I know what I was going to say. But like, if you zig when you should have zagged, you know, or like you helped a friend move furniture and you think, oh, I'm going to pay for that the next day,
Right.
you know, or you slipped and fall. The diaphragm vagus nerve exercise is magical at getting, you know, at minimizing that from spiraling out of control. And so I'll describe that for the listeners as best I can. It's in the video as well. And the best thing about these exercises, and really any exercise, is that your brain does not see doing something and imagining doing something as any different. So if you have any physical limitations or pain or anything that you feel like might keep you from these movements, that's fine. You can really just get as close as you can with it.
The power of visualization. There's a lot of research to support that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you the first thing to do is to sit in a chair and sit in pretty decent posture. You don't want to, you want to be up nice and tall, and cross your left ankle in front of your right, and just have just a little bit of gentle pressure between your ankles. And then you want to take your right hand and put it on the outside of your left thigh, or as close as you can to that. And then your left hand and put it behind your head, as long as that's pain-free and you don't have any issues there. And then we're going to do a breathing pattern, but I'll describe it first here. What I'm going to have you do is inhale for a count of 5 and hold your breath for a count of 8, and then exhale like you're blowing up a balloon or through a straw for a count of 13, or as long as you can. And if it's too hard for you to do that, a breath that's that long, you can inhale for 3, hold for 5, and exhale for 8. And those are Fibonacci numbers in a Fibonacci sequence. And that's just the math of the cosmos. So, and I'll have people, like a lot of times I'll just have people do 3 repetitions or so of this, because if something's tight, they'll do a few repetitions and then it ends up being much, much looser afterwards. For a home program, I'll have them do more of them.
Right. And so when we inhale, are we inhaling through our nose?
Inhale through the nose, yes. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. It's ideal to give the air a little bit of resistance, like you're blowing up a balloon or blowing through a thin straw. Just like exhaling without resistance doesn't work quite as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. So what we do, just take us through that one more time so that people can visualize it, and then either do it now or when they get off listening, they could be doing it while they're listening. Actually, that would be great.
Absolutely. Well, I'll give one other quick thing after this as well. So for repeating what we just did, cross your left ankle in front of your right and just have a little teeny bit of pressure between the two. Put your right hand on the outside of your left thigh or across your body. Yep. Take your left hand and put it behind your head. Yep. And then you're going to inhale for a count of 5, hold through your nose, hold your breath for a count of 8, and exhale like you're blowing up a balloon. Give the air some resistance for a count of 13, or as long as you can. And then you can repeat that a few times.
Okay, got it.
If you're not in a position to do that right now, I'll tell you that just drive right or something. Inhaling into the backside of your heart is a really powerful exercise. In my course, I show a specific position in which to do that. But the backside of the vagus nerve will get compressed towards the backside of the chest, and a lot of people are very limited in their mobility. There, we store inflammation on the backside of our hearts. And one of my favorite things, my favorite saying is from a tribe in the Andes Mountains. And they say that your future is behind you, propelling you forward. And your past is in front of you, waiting for you to make peace with it and clear your way. And I love the idea that your future has your back and that it's supporting you. Because we often go and chase our future out in front of us. And I think that's where we get a lot of anxiety and stress, thinking that it's somewhere out in front of us, when really we're being fully supported to get to where we need to be.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's definitely quotable. That's definitely going in the blog attached to this. Yeah, thank you. Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
great. And what a great practical exercise that people could incorporate into their morning routine, because we're all about, ruling the morning rules the day and getting some sort of physical, mental, emotional routine in there as soon as you can. And that's so simple to do. That's a great one. Now, the other thing that you talk about are the 6 major compression points. What are the 6 major compression points?
So the compression points are those horizontal structures, like your diaphragm, your vocal cords. At the level of your heart, it's really where your pulmonary artery and vein go horizontal. The base of the skull is one, and your thoracic inlet, kind of through your shoulders here, and the pelvic floor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to deal with the physical piece of it. It's also important to deal with really what that underlying stress is, because there's always an emotional, spiritual stressor that's underneath all of that. And so, for example, when people get really compressed at the head, and it's like when I translate it for the corporate audience, we'll often talk about it as leadership compression points.
Right.
And sometimes they, like it matches the body. And sometimes my goal with a lot of this is just to get people to not have full breakdowns, that like when you have the awareness, because by the time your body's broken down over your stress, like you're deep into it.
True. And we talk about this. What are those little triggers? What are those little signposts that our body is telling us that, we can deal with now before, the momentum has just, gone too far and we, go and need to see a practitioner or something?
Absolutely. So your vagus nerve is really the bridge between your story and your body as well. Mm-hmm. So, when your story is trauma, your vagus nerve is really dialed down and having a hard time. When your story is pleasure and ease and things like that, then your vagus nerve gets dialed up. And story lives in the body in very specific ways. And I think that this is something that ancient people really understood and that we haven't fully interpreted their mythologies that I think carry so much wisdom on this. Mm. The easiest way to understand it is through Western astrology. So the ventricles in your brain that make cerebral spinal fluid look just like the ram's horns for Aries, and in astrology, Aries rules the head. And your hyoid bone on top of your larynx looks just like the symbol for Taurus, and Taurus rules the throat. And the aortic arch is the same shape as the symbol for Leo, and Leo rules the heart. And so it works this way the whole way through the body. So you can really use the story to help identify what those underpinnings are. And I've turned it into a form of energy medicine as well. And it works not just through Western astrology. It works, in the Egyptian pantheon. The Vedas all tell the story of our anatomy as well. And so you can really use, many, many different systems. The story of the biblical story of the Temple of the Ark of the Covenant describes cranial anatomy in quite a bit of detail. And so it's just really fun when I love hearing.
Fascinating.
It's so much fun. I love it so much. When I can hear a story and go, oh, I know what part of the body or what system that's about. And we know that mythology was a way they communicated science. The ancient Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris has the numbers of the Earth's precessional cycle in it. So, and there's other major myths from other cultures that have the same numbers. So it was a way they communicated the cosmology. Their scientific writing was just different than how we do it.
Well, there was no separation back then, was there, between science and mythology? And we're finding that with the quantum science now. It's sort of almost looking more like mythology than it is traditional science. Yeah.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah. And in we have the structures inside of ourselves that are the same shape as the constellations as well. Like, it's so amazing, just like how we literally, we are this as above, so below. So
that's right. Isn't that wonderful that, the answers really are literally within us.
Absolutely, yeah. You're right. And so, when I strip a lot of the spiritual language out of it, or the myth, to make it a little more accessible and practical, depending on the audience. So when people get compressed at their head, or they're having a lot of tightness, maybe at the base of the skull, or this could show up even as a voice issue, that your heroics are at odds with your desires, and it ends up impairing your vision, so you can't see what needs to happen. And vision is critical for good leadership. But when you're the hero in somebody else's story and not your own, and certainly from a business standpoint, businesses at some level are trying to be the hero in somebody's story. But when when it's not aligned, or you're trying to be too many different kinds of heroes, or not the right hero, or when you don't know what you want really clearly, and especially when I work with women often have a really hard time identifying what they want.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head in terms of clarity, because we find that in a leadership sense, when you have clarity, it's almost like the answers reveal themselves to you. And the starting point for a lot of people is, so how do I get clear? And one of the areas that we start with is looking at your values. And there are lots of starting points, I suppose, as long as you actually start somewhere in this realm of self-awareness. And that is just one jumping off point that we like to use with people is looking at values. Oh, that's fascinating.
Absolutely. Yeah. So like moving down more in the shoulder area, like that's where shoulder to throat is more like where your adaptability and your emotions impair your identity. So you don't know who you are. You're not clear on the who. And like more like through the chest and abdomen, when your operating point and your practices are at odds with each other, and this is where you can talk a little bit about being heart-centered, or just like where, like what is, like, where are you coming from? Like your perspective, your history, and your practices that are at odds with each other. It impairs your nourishment, and, and all the way down towards the feet, when your transformation and your rootedness are at odds with each other, then, you can't get to the right place. You can't get where you need to be. You can't get, to the right place at the right time. And it impairs your boundaries, like in your aegis. And so that's very, but it's, it works. It's amazing to me how, like, literally it, this works. Through the body,
absolutely. Yeah. And so if somebody was interested in exploring that further, how would they go about doing that, Melanie?
They can reach out to me at ask@melanieweller.com. You can schedule a session directly via my website as well. My contact information, I'm easy to get in touch with. My contact information is all over my website. But if they want to know more, certainly reaching out to me directly is great. And I have, you can check my website for free offerings.
Okay. Yes, because for some people it might be, getting clear about their values. For other people, it might be exploring, or going down this route in order to uncover or to get more clarity, which is such a great starting point for, self-awareness and moving into the life that you really want to live. And so the more options available to people, you know what I mean? I think
absolutely,
that,
absolutely, right. You have to find that, I think that when you find the right person to work with you, when you find someone who can meet you where you are, that's really, where the magic happens. And, and part of the magic of the vagus nerve too, is that you can, as much as you can use it to map your own body, you can also use it to map the body of your business and to see where your business ends up compressed. And so it really works. It's very scalable process.
Oh, Jan and I might have to reach out to you. This is just so fascinating, Melanie. This is wonderful. So I'd just like to know, so what are you working on at the moment?
I am writing my book right now. I'm deep into writing my book, and my goal is to have it out in December. Okay,
and how are you going towards achieving that goal at the moment?
I hired a book coach, which has been amazing, and it's always good to have that accountability. And I have a great like I have a book coach, and then I have like a writing coach too that goes through with it, and she's just magical. She's been phenomenal with it. And blocking out time on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, Schedule. It doesn't happen.
We say that to people. Yeah, exactly. Like if you have a goal or something that you want to achieve, one of the first things that you do is you schedule it, because
yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that I've found really helpful for that is creating a ritual. Like I have a writing necklace that I wear. I have and I light a candle, and I've just got a little bit of ritual around it to create the container.
Yeah, that's beautiful actually. And then you've got something to look forward to as well. It's it's almost like a ceremony. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, we would love to have you on again because this is really fascinating, and thank you for being so practical in something that is so sort of, big and it sort of can impact us on so many levels.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. And is there something that you'd like to leave the listeners with before we wrap up? It's almost like a call to action because we are so action oriented, Jen and I. Yeah.
I think the biggest, really, breathe into the backside of your heart and the backside of your ribs to really breathe into your future, because your heart really contains the how things come to you. And you can do a lot of setting up the who, what, when, where, why in your life, but the universe kind of gives you the how. And your heart is really the attraction point for that. And so, taking to heart that saying that your future's behind you, propelling you forward, and really breathing into that, I think would be, if I could leave you with one magical thing, I think that's that would be it.
Thank you, Melanie. Well, thank you very much. That was absolutely fascinating, and we would love to have you on again to explore that a little bit further. So have a great day. And where are you at the moment? Just so that everybody can imagine.
I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay. And what's the weather like there today?
Oh, today it was spectacular. It was, I have to think about it in Celsius. It was probably like 22, 23, something like that. It's been really hot. Like, our summer here is hot. Like it's always 100 degrees. 37. Yeah. So we just it was such a beautiful day today.
Beautiful. Well, enjoy the day. Thank you very much, Melanie, and we'll see you again.
Thank you, Michelle. This was great.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the People Leaders Podcast. For show notes and other resources, please visit us at peopleleaderspodcast.com. While you're there, you can subscribe for future episodes so you can continue your own leadership journey. And please be sure to share this and other episodes with your friends and colleagues. The People Leaders Podcast is brought to you by the Experts on Air Podcast Network.